since the pandemic, we've gone back to this quick, fast, and we forget about the person. And we forget about communication and being transparent and being open. Instead of going like, how are you? What do you need from me? Like, what do you need? I can give you this, I can give you that. But no, you tell me what you need.
What does it take to get through change and create strong allies? Today, we get to find out. Welcome to Sound Leadership, the podcast for the silent superheroes of L&D, HR and leadership, helping you build awareness and inspire personal responsibility through action. We're thrilled to have Lucy Grimwade as our special guest today. Lucy is a change strategist, coach and storyteller with a deep fascination for how we navigate change and the unknown, and co-author of Allyship Actually, Why It's We and Not Me. Lucy has spent years helping people and businesses through change, and there's one thing she knows for certain, that change does not have to feel like a freefall. Lucy has worked with companies such as River Island, Investec, Harrods, Selfridges, the John Lewis Partnership, Virgin Media and the BT Group. And now she's an author, coach, storyteller and founder of Light Spark Group, which is a global change and coaching consultancy business. Stay with us until the end, where we will find out Lucy's top 3 leadership soundbites. And don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a comment. Lucy, thanks for joining us on Sound Leadership. Can we start with a bit of your journey?
I had such a linear career at the start. I did a degree in computing, and then I worked on the service desk. Then I moved into service delivery, and then headed up supply chain services for a retail brand, which was amazing. But I think throughout my whole career, I knew I wasn't in the right thing for myself. And I had so many weird experiences, which are told in the book. And I kind of went through a bit of a journey myself when I wasn't very well. And I realised that I needed to make a change for myself. So my whole theme that I kind of live and dream by now is kind of change and transformation. And I ended up kind of networking a bit more, working on myself, became a qualified coach, and I met the wonderful David Barrow, who was already an author. He was mentoring me, and as we got to know each other a bit more, and I started telling him all of my stories of all of the difficult challenges that I had being a woman in tech, he pitched the idea to me and said, do you want to write a book? And I was like, me? Write a book? Are you sure? Because I actually couldn't read or write really until I was 11, so I had a really difficult start at the beginning of my life. And so it feels a bit surreal for me to sit here with the book in front of us, just, to be an author. But I knew I wanted to do something because I knew there was a lot of women out there who were very similar to me, who'd gone through similar trauma to me in the workplace. And I wanted to let people know, women know, that they're not alone. But I equally wanted to do something with David that meant that we could help men too, and help men understand what women go through, but also help men course correct, because they might read something and think, oh goodness, I didn't know I was doing that. That's actually wrong. How can I fix this? Mm. So that's how I kind of, in the short version of it all, how I ended up being an author.
We'll talk more about the book a little bit later on, but for me, it's part of the power of it is seeing it, reading it from a male perspective and developing my understanding around how certain situations that you may have found yourself in and how that comes across and what that feels like in particular. So we talk a lot about empathy and understanding other people, and I think the book really helps from that perspective. Yeah. How did you, so you mentioned there that not particularly being able to read and write until the age of 11. So then that moment where you're asked to write a book, did that bring back memories of, can I do this? Am I the right person to be writing a book?
Yes, all of that. I hate using the term imposter syndrome, but I definitely had a moment of being like, can I do this? And we had to pause. So David and I was meant to release the book way earlier than it should have been, but I had to take a break from it, not just because of having that of like, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this, but also some of the stories, I'd forgotten about them. I had put them to one side because you'd move on with your life. I had done so many different things since some of these stories, and I was remembering things that actually found quite triggering, and I had to protect myself. And to protect David as well, and we had to have a bit of a sit-down conversation where I was like, I need like some time out from this for now. I definitely still want to do this, but I need to protect myself so I can be strong enough so when the book does come out, I can help people. And people have been messaging me, telling me their stories, but it's because I took that time out. I'm strong enough to kind of be like, right, thank you for sharing your story. Here's some advice, here's some resources. So, yeah.
And what did that time out look like? Was that mentally time away from it, or physically did you go away and take yourself off somewhere nice and hot and just sit on a beach somewhere and relax? What did it look like?
I wish. It was just mental time away from it. Yeah. Just not, we avoided talking about it. It wasn't for a long period of time, maybe it was a couple of months, but it was, my work had picked up, so I was quite busy with my work, so I had that as a distraction. I was going out a bit more, I was doing some different things, so I had like mentally put it to one side, but I knew it was something I needed to be done, and the publisher was messaging being like, so any danger? Which fair, I signed a contract, so it was really important to make sure it was going to be done. But the time out, but you need to do that, and I think that's a really good piece of advice for people as well. There is that sometimes it's okay just to take a week out, a month out, whatever it is you need, because you are your strong instrument. Like you can, you need to take care of yourself to be able to deliver all the things that you do, no matter what your role is, but especially as a leader as well.
Definitely. And I think we talk quite often about that give-get principle. And that's what you're talking about there. You're talking about, what can I give?
Yeah.
Where is my control? And my control is looking after myself to be able to help others. What I'm really interested in is, you were talking about a linear career path, and I think, speaking for a lot of people, they could feel in a very similar position, that their career is, I am in this world and this is what I'm always going to work towards. How did you start challenging some of those limiting beliefs to go, I have had this linear career, but the options are open to me to do and be what I want to be?
I think we're really lucky that the world we live in now allows us to be diverse. Whereas years ago, that wasn't a thing. And I think some people are still stuck in that, I was a service delivery manager. So I was always been, you're a service delivery manager. What do you mean you want to go and be a coach? What do you mean you want to go and be a trainer? What do you mean you want to go and write a book? And I had that. I even had that last year with a recruiter saying, I don't know why you've got on your LinkedIn that you're an author, because I am. I don't know why on your LinkedIn you're saying you're a coach, because I am. But people put you in a box. And I think it's about being comfortable with who you are. And that isn't something that happens overnight. That takes time. And I spent years, and I mean years, figuring out who I am, trying things, failing again, making so many mistakes. And you know what, I have gone. When I left my permanent job to go, so it's been 2 years now, me contracting, freelancing. When I left my permanent job, I knew I didn't want to work in service management, but I had boxed myself into that, and I felt trapped. I felt so trapped. Recruiters I kept getting roles thrown at me for service delivery management, but you have to be strong in yourself to be like, because that's easy, that's your comfort zone. That's the easy option. I could easily go and do a SDM role, service delivery manager role. But it's about having that gumption almost, and that kind of trust and self-belief in yourself to go, no, actually I've got a bigger purpose here. I want to do something different. I'm doing this for a reason, and having that self-belief. But again, I think it's really easy for me to sit on this side of the table and say that, and there's probably people listening and watching that think, well, how did you get to do that? Because it's so hard. It's not something, you don't wake up one day and go, oh, this is my purpose. You've got to figure out who you are, work with a mentor, work with a coach, go and have some therapy and some counselling if that's what you need, go and take yourself out for a walk, read some books, don't sit and binge watch so much on Netflix, unless the documentaries, because they'd be quite good for you, but do things that are good for yourself. Spend time with your friends, have a look at your friendship group. Who have you got around you? Are they helping you or hindering you? They're all those things, and I had to go through all of that to get to the point where now I can sit opposite both you two and be like, I'm really confident and happy with my purpose and where I'm going and where I'm taking things forwards.
So it sounds like to grow, you need a support network, and it's the people around you that actually allow you to grow. Because it was interesting, you use the word fail, where you could replace that with learn, grow. And then, you know, it sounds like you've got a great people around you who have been there to support you, to listen to you, to be a sounding board to you. You know, how do you surround yourself with the right people for that?
What a great reframe around learn, grow. I'm totally pinching that with pride. I'll be honest, I had moments where I had all the wrong people around me. And I was around about the age of 30 and I was really poorly at that time. And I felt so much pressure from these people that I had in my life. Like, why wasn't I at this, you know, why wasn't I married? Why wasn't I having children? Why wasn't, you know, at 30 there's this thing that we have. And it took me a while to realise that these people were toxic for me. And it takes a lot of strength to go, no, I don't want you in my life. And I did it slowly. I cut people out slowly. And then I started to go to different networking groups or meet people at work, jobs that I was doing, connecting with different people. Had a mentor, and then David, who then introduced me to other people. People met, I had, like, at the time I was doing a lot on Instagram, so I had people message me on Instagram. I've actually got 3 really close best friends that I met on Instagram, but it was in 2020 and it was the time where, you know, it was okay to do that kind of thing. Now, maybe not so much. But it's about kind of going out there, putting yourself out there to find your tribe, your network. And sometimes it is, you know, you do grow. People either grow with you or they don't. And I think you have to be comfortable with that. And they might not like that. And, you know, I won't tell the whole story, but I had an old friend message me and she was like, oh, you know, our husbands have met up, you know, maybe me and you could meet up. And I thought, no, I don't want to. So I wrote her a lovely message back to say, thank you so much for reaching out to me. Old me would have been like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll go. But me now, who's comfortable in who I am, I was like, thank you so much. I'm really pleased for you. I can see your career success. I wish you well. And that was that.
That's brave to do that.
I was like, oh no, I'll be honest. I was like, oh, I hope that was okay. And I got my friend to check it. But I had to do that you have to do that for yourself. You have to do that for your own belief and confidence. And I didn't want to go back. I'd grown so much. I could not go back into that circle again.
Bit of the circle of life, isn't it? And the things go round and things change, don't they? And I think you change as maybe not fundamentally as a human, but your thoughts and your feelings around things and your experiences start to guide the places you want to be and the people you want to surround yourself with. And I think there's a real good lesson out of that. Of we speak to so many people, and I'm sure you're the same, you know, with the coaching stuff that you've done. Speak to so many people that are just a little bit unsure and not quite, I think deep down in their gut, they know they're not in the right place for them, but they're so scared of making that move and going and finding something else, working with someone else. And did you mentioned that you met David? Was that, am I right in thinking that was a bit of a chance meeting?
Yeah, it was.
Tell us a little bit about how you met and how that relationship came about.
Yeah, we were both part of a mentoring program. Read Women in Tech do a fantastic mentoring program, and I was partnered up with somebody else. And I was just talking about my career and he was talking about his career. And then he's like, oh, you should meet David, because David is really into service management, because at the time that's what I was doing. And he's all just kind of introduced us. And to be honest, because of my experience I had in service management, I was like, oh, do I really want to join? And I really didn't want to join the call. And I won't say really what I thought. You know, for it to go out on air, but David knows. And then when I met David, I was blown away. It was a completely different character to who I've met throughout my whole career. And he was really interesting and had we had the same views. We were all about people and growth and wanting to do best practice for the businesses. And we were just really in sync. And yeah, we ended up just clicking straight away. But that would never have happened if we both went on the mentoring program. And he was debating whether he should be part of it as well, because he didn't want to add to the problem. He talks about that a lot, like, do I do this? Do I not? I don't want to add to the problem. And it was a mutual friend of ours that, well, now a mutual friend because I met her through him, encouraged him to do it. And actually, if he hadn't have done that, I don't know if I'll be honest, I don't know if I'd be sat here now with this book as well as the confidence and the growth that I've had too, because David has been so instrumental in some of the things that I've been doing as well.
Yeah, which is great, isn't it? You learn from others, and but I think for me that's when I think about surrounding yourself with experts, and I don't necessarily mean like knowledge experts, but surround yourself with good people, and you never know what comes of it. I never thought in a million years I'd be hosting a podcast. I never thought I'd be training an AI coach. It's mind-blowing. But that for me comes from pushing myself outside of my comfort zone at times, and I wasn't confident as a kid, not at all. I used to hang around my mum's leg, so really not confident. So to talk about, ending up where I'm now, so what importance do you place in terms of almost taking a bit of a leap of faith? So you mentioned like going on a mentoring program. It's quite a big thing to do, isn't it? If we lack a bit of confidence, if we're not quite sure of who we are. So what importance do you place on putting yourself in those positions?
I think it's about, and it's so easy for me to sit here and say this because I've gone through my own kind of journey, haven't I? And a bit like yourself as well, and I'm sure, Darren, you have. It's, when you're in your comfort zone, and then you go into the learning zone next. I think you've just got to kind of just dip your toe. You don't have to go all in, and I think that's something that social media makes you think that you have to like dive in head first, and it's a big thing. Do what's comfortable for you. Maybe you'll go to these mentoring programs, because some of them are just in a big group session. Go and sit in silence and have a listen. You don't have to contribute. You can listen and build your confidence up to be able to maybe come off mute and say, oh yeah, I agree to that, or write something in the comments. And I think you've got to do whatever you're comfortable with. Don't push yourself too much, because otherwise you're going to kind of go out, you're going to dive in. It's like diving into cold water, isn't it? You're going to be like, oh, I'm not doing that again. Dip your toe and do it slowly, like immerse yourself into it. That's probably what I would kind of, what would you two say?
I think that's nice advice, because I agree with you that there's times where we're pushed to go and do stuff. And I'm just thinking back to my early career when lacked a bit of confidence, and people going, you got to go and do this. You got to go out there and you got to go and speak to these people. And I remember being sent to a networking event one day, and I wasn't particularly good at, I was good at socialising at the rugby club, come from a rugby background. I was okay at doing that. Yeah. But put me in a business environment when I was early 20s, I didn't understand business. We were talking about strategy and marketing and commercial aspects. I didn't understand it at that point of my career. And I was put in a room with 100 people about, go and talk to people and you go, this is massively uncomfortable. So then my perception of networking is actually, I don't want to be in those situations. Whereas fast forward, and I'm the same as you, it's taken a long time to get to that point, and you go through a bit of a journey. Can I have a conversation with someone? Yeah. Because probably from my coaching background as much as anything, that I can be curious and I can ask questions and I can be intrigued by what people are talking about. And then you realise, actually, we're just human beings, and we've got a story, and we've all got different stories that we can tell, but we're just human beings.
It's about looking what I want to do. And here's that give, get again. What can I give? I'm listening to your story there, Lucy, and what I see is you met David because you chose to go on a mentoring program. Without that choice, you would have never met. And he's also made that choice to be involved in that as well. So when we look back, we think of all these things that have happened, and I never thought I'd be doing A, B, C. But we've got to reflect and go, what choices did I make that allowed me to end up where I am? And to go, aren't I great? And to celebrate the choices that I've made, because some of those choices were really hard and there were easy options. And you didn't take those easy options. You went, I want to grow, I want to push forward, I might need to change my friendship groups and all of that. But at times you just need to step back and go, yeah, I'm proud of me. I'm proud of the decisions I've made, because that's allowed me to be the person that I am now, and I'm happy as the person I am now.
It's made my heart a bit warm, that has.
I asked someone on coaching, a client a few weeks back, we were talking about her career, and I was trying to get to unpack the things that she'd done so far. She was like, yeah, I've just done that. It's just part of my career. And there's someone very senior in the business. And I asked that question. I said, so what are you proud of in your career? And she broke down in tears, because no one had ever asked her if she was proud of what she'd achieved to date. And there's so much of what we've done that forms who we are now and then what we're going to become as well. And I think it's worth reflecting and looking back at all the great stuff that we have done individually that builds our story. Lucy, on your LinkedIn profile...
Yes.
So no, it's not bad. So you spent years helping, talking about you've spent years helping yourself first, and then others.
Yeah.
Just give us a bit of insight into what that looks like, because I think we're often told that you help others first, don't worry about yourself, like go and help others. So just give us a little bit of insight into what you did to get to that point.
When I was about 30, just coming up to 30, I was really poorly. I had some mental health challenges, which meant that I needed to be signed off work. I even had a regular phone call with my GP weekly to make sure that I was okay and that we got the right help that I needed, because I was that poorly. I went through CBT, I went through one-to-one counselling, I also had some life coaching. I actually went to see a coach about my career, and then she ended up giving me life coaching, and the coaching is so incredibly powerful. And to this day, as much as I have benefited from cognitive behavioural therapy and that one-to-one therapy, which I needed to address the past trauma, the life coaching that I had, I would say also was really instrumental for my life. It probably saved my life, probably saved me, coaching. It really, really did. And it was when I was in between doing cognitive behavioural therapy and really understanding kind of my past and what was going on and what I wanted to do with my life and the direction that I was going, I knew that if I was going to survive what I had gone through or what I was going through, I wanted to help other people, but I knew I needed to be strong, resilient, kind of mentally sound, in a position whereby I can listen to people, ask people questions, be more curious, everything that you just said about coaching, because it's so incredibly powerful. I needed to go through all of that first. I also did lots of other kind of more holistic things like yoga, Reiki. I tried everything that you can think of. I actually probably tried it. Going out in nature. At one point you would find me hugging a tree. I did that. I would take my shoes off, put my feet on the grass, because I was really trying to find different ways to ground me and to help me and to heal me. And when I got to a point, so it probably has been now so I've been coaching probably about 5 years, and I started coaching just as I started to feel better in myself. And actually doing the coach training was a huge thing for me as well, because I had done all the coaching, then I was learning all the theory, and then I was having additional coaching. Wow, like that was, how fortunate am I to have had that? Like, I just feel so lucky. And sometimes I message some of the cohort I was with to be like, how lucky were we that we had this lovely group of people? And I have regular coaching now still. And if I feel like I need some therapy, I'll go and have some therapy. It's a bit like what I was saying earlier. You've got to continue to look after yourself and make sure that if I want to go and help my clients now with change, or run group coaching sessions or training programs, or talking about the book, I need to be in a good place where I can show up and be there for people, because I'm strong and I want to be strong for them. Because there's points in my life where I didn't have anyone there who was strong for me, and if I can be that strong person for someone, for them to go, actually change is possible for me, I can do something with my life, I can change my career, I'm not alone, then if that's just one person, then that's great.
I don't know about you, Dan, but how often do you hear that in a training environment where people go, aren't we so lucky that we've all turned up today and it's a great group?
Yeah.
Actually, it happens too often that generally you end up going, human beings are just great. And actually, when they surround themselves with other nice people that are open, honest, willing to share their story, that's what creates the environment. And sometimes it's just about seeing what that connection to other human beings are. There's a connection somewhere. You've just got to spend the time to find it and find your passion together. And then, you just see actually how good people are naturally.
I think we're just so quick to judge, aren't we, as well? I think that's something that I'd be curious to hear from both of you as well. The coaching training has made me a lot more curious. I would say I've got quite high emotional intelligence too, so I do pick up on people's cues. I can always tell when something's wrong. I think it's like my spidey senses. But I've also noticed that since the pandemic and how people work now, we've gone back to this quick, fast, and we forget about the person. And we forget about communication and being transparent and being open and actually going, instead of going like, how are you? What do you need from me? Like, what do you need? I can give you this, I can give you that. But no, you tell me what you need. Do you think that too?
Yeah, it's just funny. This is where I think, so I met Darren, 8 months ago, something like that. And, we're very aligned in our thinking. And that thinking is that the human comes first. And I'll steal something that you said on the course that we delivered on a couple of days ago, where the people come first. And then there was some models that kind of backed up that. So if you look at, I don't know, NLP or Grow coaching models, it wasn't that the model came first. And then we go, let's get some people to fit in with that. It works the other way. So it's about putting the human first. And for me, it's always about understand the human element of it. The more you understand about people, the better the conversations are, the more that they can take away from it, the more that you take away from it, the more you kind of grow and you collaborate. And so, yeah, it's always about putting the human element first for me.
And it's opening up that mind and going, what are my unconscious biases that I am assuming about a situation, a person, how they look, how they speak, the words they use, all of that, putting that to the back burner of going, I want to understand before being understood, because the most important person in this conversation isn't me, it's the other person. And if everyone's thinking like that, then everyone's still the most important person, but it's coming from a educate position, a more information position, a more knowledge position than it's all about me.
Should we talk about change?
Love to talk about change. Love to.
Well, look, why don't you lead away with it in terms of, talk to me about your experiences around change and what that means for you, because change might mean something different to everyone that's listening. So you tell us about it and then we'll unpack it from there.
I said at the beginning that I feel like my whole theme is like change and transformation. And even my friends who I'm very close to, they're like, yeah, that's your theme, change and transformation. I, by chance, have always worked in change and I've never really realised it. And it's something that I was offered a contract role to do kind of a business change role, and I just fell in love. And I'm like, why is this not landed on my lap before? And I've done all the coaching, and I've been doing coaching for a while, and my background is doing service management, but I've always worked in an element where I've introduced something new and I've had to help people through that change curve. And I've seen people go through that change curve more than once, multiple times, and I feel like I get people. So I've ended up in this amazing space whereby I can use my background and my experience from kind of personal stories, my career of working in service management and doing service introduction as part of being a service delivery manager, and now being a change manager in a contract kind of role. But to me, I think change is about being able to kind of be a bit of a butterfly and go through that phase of being like, going along, being a cocoon, and then coming out feeling kind of beautiful and transformed in a way that you can feel confident to do what you need to do with whatever it is, whether it's a new process or you've got a new leader or you want to make a change for yourself, you want to change your career. I just love going through that whole kind of change journey with people. And all my coaching clients, because I was reflecting upon this year really, all the coaching clients that I've worked with, and I can't believe it, I was kind of adding up how many people I've worked with over the last kind of few years. I've probably worked with over 100 women going through kind of change, and I've never pinned that down before. Everyone I've worked with has been changing career, moving abroad, going into a leadership role now. How are we going to do that? That's a change in behaviour, change in mindset, and yeah, I feel really passionate about it. I'm trying to like keep my
no, let the passion out. It's good.
Too energetic. I'll whack the mic out of the way. But I'm really, really passionate about change is possible, and I think we fear it so much, but you don't need to fear it. If you've got the right people around you, the right skill set, the transparency, the communication. That's my biggest gripe, by the way, is that we don't communicate well. And it really bothers me. And I don't know why. If anyone is listening that can change the world with this, we need to be more transparent. As I was driving over, I was thinking of this, of when I used to run teams, because I used to be a lead, I used to have a huge team. I had a team of 30 male engineers at one point, had another big team, and I was working in high-end retail. And I used to be told things, and the management were like, oh, you can't tell your team about this. And I used to tell them, because I was like, I've been told I'm not meant to tell you this. But they were so high-performing, if I do say so myself, but I think it was because I told them what was going on. I never hid anything. If I didn't know, I would say I don't know. And I think communication is so important when you're going through any change in whatever it is.
Our two
I went off on a tangent now, I'm so sorry.
No, this is fine, because it is crucial. Our two businesses are built on that. So Media First, sister company that produced this show, the communication specialist. Communication feeds into everything that we do. And as you were talking there, something sprung to mind. This happened a couple of days ago. I was going into London and I just got on the tube, and there was two ladies just about to get on, and they've been really indecisive. And you know what it's like when there's not a lot of room on there, and you've either got to take that leap and just jump on the train, or you've got to hold back and you wait for the next one. Anyway, they didn't communicate at all. One jumped on the train and the other was stood on the station, and then they were trying to signal to each other through the window, and it just... And as we were sort of going along, I was thinking, this is all about communication. Because had they have said to each other, oh, should we get on this one? Or, well, let's just wait. They wouldn't have got split up at all. And it's just very simple communication that we miss out on in business. And I'm with you. I think there's aspects of being a leader that it's good to be vulnerable, and it's good to share. And you don't need to share everything every time, but to share what situation we're in, let's be clear and transparent about it. Because if you've got good people around you, you're more likely to find a solution. You're going to feel better about it. Mentally holding on to all this baggage, that creates stress, and then we know where that can lead to. So for me, I'm totally on board. It's all about communication.
And I think it's bringing up communication early. So again, you talked about someone jumping on train. That should have been pre-planned.
Yeah.
Why don't organisations like to communicate change early in the process?
I genuinely think it's because they either don't know themselves, and they have, and because it goes down, doesn't it, at the end of the day? So they are not too sure, and they're like, well, can I say this or can I not say that? I also think that it's that fear. Years ago, do you remember years ago when I first started working, we were told to not talk about certain things, like don't talk about how much money you earn, don't talk about your family life, don't do this, don't do that. And I think that's still ingrained in some managers, leaders' minds. And I think that's why they don't communicate. I often think people don't, a bit like what you're just saying, I don't think people are happy or comfortable being vulnerable. Because actually there's nothing wrong with going, oh, something is going on, I'm not too sure what it is, but it might mean that we might have a change of leadership or a change of system or a change of process or whatever it is. It's literally fine to say, oh, something in my gut's telling me something's happening, but I don't know what. That's cool, say that, because actually when that does happen, you can be like, oh, see, this is why we trust my gut, and like turn it, be like funny, be human about it. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Well, for me, I think businesses are more afraid of some challenge could come back, where I think what it needs is a mindset shift, is to go, if we communicate early, we can get engagement with the team. Yeah. And when we got a team engaged, the potential's unlimited. By communicating late, I'm creating a finite game. I'm creating the result and we'll achieve the result. But if I engage people early, they may develop it even further. And even though the result we want is here, actually, it could be 3-4 steps forward by engaging those people. And I think at times us as human, and probably organisations as well, go, I'm more afraid of not getting the expected result than going, what's the potential for us?
I also don't think businesses really define what their outcome is going to be.
Yeah, possibly.
So I think you're spot on with they don't want challenge back. And I think that loops into the amount of times I've said, well, what does success look like for this project? And the room is silent because they're not used to that question, which I understand. But it's a simple question. What does success look like? And then how do we work towards that? And yeah, I think it's a mixture of those two things, isn't it?
So where do you go from there? So when you ask those questions and you've got a room full of people that are fearing change, because I guess typically we can go, well, we've got some people over here that hate change and there's some people over here that love it and want to change regularly. How do you manage the ones that are going through that fear of change? They don't want to. They'd like, we've always done it this way, so I'm going to stick to that because that's always been successful. What strategies do you use to get them past or like over that barrier?
I think I'm fortunate because I've done coach training. So I have worked with people recently where I've sat with them one-to-one. You never call them out on a meeting, because I saw someone do that a couple of weeks ago and I sat in my chair cringing because it's just so awkward and so awful for that person. Like, I'm already struggling with this, that you're implementing something completely new which could take elements of my role away, and now you're calling me out in front of 100 people. But I was just sat there like, oh. It's about having one-to-ones with them, asking them questions, you know, what's going on here? Tell me how this is going to impact you in your role. If we implement this process or this tool, what does that mean to you? How is that going to change for you? What do you need from us? And there has been moments a long time ago whereby I had implemented new change, which meant it was making people redundant. And it was really important for me to make sure that that person was aware that this change was coming, but there was opportunities to go and learn a new skill set to future-proof themselves. And I think if you can do that and have that ability to do that, one, ask them loads of questions, understand them, understand what they're going through, and then see what you can do to offer them help, whether it's going to be the inevitable and unfortunately they are going to lose their role. But what can you do as a manager, leader, business to make them successful in the future? Can you help them with their CV? Is there anything HR can offer? Is there any benefits that you can give them? Do they need some counselling? Have they been in the role for 30 years? Which a lot of tech people that I've worked with have been in a role 20, 40 years, and the next thing you know, that's all they've ever done. And then what do they go and do? So it's making sure that they had access. But I also think this is that's a very kind of blue sky, great. But there's some people who just will resist, push back, and you can try every single thing. And then I think it does get to a point whereby, what do you need? What is it that's gonna? And if they can't answer that, then you have to say, well, you need to go and think about that, and then you come back to us because we've given you 100 things, 100 options, and none of them are good enough. Do you think maybe it is maybe time for you to part ways or look for a new role? And again, I don't think there's anything wrong in having that conversation. As long as HR are there and you're doing it ethically, I really don't think there's anything wrong in having that conversation, which might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm curious to see what you two think.
I'm quite intrigued by this because, and without taking the conversation too much down the route of exits from a business, but I quite often talk about this, and I say it on the courses that we deliver and with coaching clients, that there's nothing wrong with an exit strategy from a business, because if that, I come back to the human element. If that human is in your team and they're struggling and they're not happy, they're not thriving in that environment, it's not right for them, help them get out of it. Why keep someone in that position? Because they'll end up resenting it. And I've coached people out of a business, and not because that was my driver, because I'm asking the questions and you kind of get a feel for where they want to be really, and you're motivating and inspiring them to be empowered to take decisions for themselves. So it's not that my intention has gone in to go, well, you need to leave the business. Not at all. And I would never have said that in the coaching sessions to that client. But all I'm doing is unpacking and looking at different options. And people don't like to hear it. They don't like to hear that there's exit strategies. Help someone. And in addition to that, to me, is then that if you support that individual and then they go off, and 9 times out of 10, they'll go and thrive somewhere else. And then you've got that human element again, where they're in a much better place in their life. They'll remember, what you've done to help them. And then you start to build up those strong relationships. Then you have that buddy, or you have that kind of mentor for life type thing. So yeah, that's my view on that.
I just think it links back to a model we talk about lots, and that's awareness, responsibility. I think you can tell people what to do and what to do and what to do, and they will always have a reason not to do it. Actually, what you're able to do as a coach is give them awareness So then they have got those options to then go, well, we've got all these options. What are you going to do with it? And for them to do it and then take responsibility. I remember a conversation we had, and we didn't have a formal coaching session, but it was just the questions you asked. Actually, what do you want to do? What are your skills that you can further develop? Suddenly, those questions were looking at me, not the business around me, not the people around me, but me. That then I went, okay, I've got these options. What am I going to do for it? And better for worse, I've made that decision. And by making that decision, I then take responsibility for all the great things that are going to come out of it, or maybe some of the challenges as well. But I've got no one to sort of blame or take that easy option that, oh, well, a business has made me redundant, or they're changing this or changing that. Actually, I've got a choice in this, and I'm going to own my responsibility.
And you need to have that in you. And I think you're the master of your own destiny, and everybody is that. So you can sit and be like, I'm really unhappy, I'm being made redundant, I'm, woe is me. Or you can go and turn it around and actually go and take all your skill set. And sometimes people have been in businesses for a long time. What are you going to do with all that money? What can you do with that now? I've had that conversation with someone before, because it was a lot of money this person was getting. Oh, I never really thought about that. What is this money going to bring you now? And just really thinking it, reframing it. So yeah, love that.
Reframing, we talk about that all the time, don't we? It's that taking the negative perspective of it and turning it into a positive in this situation. And I think we've been through similar-ish experiences in terms of parts of our career. I was really unhappy at one place. I just quit. Didn't know what I was going to, but I quit because I just could not stay in that toxic environment anymore. That afternoon, I'm on the phone to everyone I know, exploring different options. And for me, it's that positive intent and the positive actions behind it. Should we talk about your book?
Love to talk about the book, thank you.
So give us a bit of an overview of, I guess, what it's about and where that came from.
So it's a series of short stories written from a male and a female perspective about our careers working in tech, and really how it ends, it's about how we came together and how allyship wins, really. It came about with David pitching the idea to me to writing a book. I have so many stories that some of the stories didn't quite make the book as well. Maybe there'd be a part 2. And we wanted the book to be something for women and men, for women to feel less alone and know that they're not the only ones kind of going through certain things. And then for men to go, oh, crikey, I can't believe that's happening. And actually I can course correct now. I'm a huge, huge advocate for course correction. And some of the things that we've talked about today is all about allyship, really, around that kind of listening and being curious. And I always say being an ally is being more coach-like. It's about asking that person what they need. And, David is kind of, through me, kind of coaching him now. He's kind of gone, yeah, I see that. Because he only ever asked me, what do I need? How can you help me? And that he never kind of was like, you must go and do this. He's a creme de la creme of service management. And when I told him that I really hated the industry and I wanted to leave it, he was like, cool, what are we going to do to get you away from it?
And
that's amazing.
If you could define what allyship is, and also probably what allyship isn't, because I'm sure some people have a view of what it is, how would you define allyship?
Allyship's a verb. It's about doing. It's being curious. It's about it's definitely not about assuming what people need. It's not that putting it on your LinkedIn profile, ally. Or like, International Women's Day going, hi, I'm a man and I support women. It's not that. It's not those kind of small, virtual signalling things. Allyship, there's stuff that we could be doing in the background that nobody knows what we're doing. It's not about looking for praise, or it's not about being... I see a lot of people call themselves allies and they're like, I read this book, so now I'm an ally. Well, no, what are you going to learn from that? What learnings are you going to take? And I think being an ally as well, I know I keep saying it is being more coach-like. It is about being curious, and it is about listening, and it is about being a sponsor, but it's also about educating yourself. I sit here now and I've done a produced a book with David about allyship, but I'm still learning loads about allyship. You know, we've done it from a male to female perspective, but there's so much more to it that I'm learning. I'm learning about my privilege. I'm learning about my background. I'm learning how I can use my privilege and leverage my background to help other people who maybe don't have the same advantages that I have. But I'm not going out on my LinkedIn page being like, oh, look what I'm doing. I'm doing it in the background because it's the right thing to do. It's about being a decent human being.
Earlier on, you mentioned course correction. Talk to us about what that is and how that fits in with allyship.
I'll give you an example. It was this year, I had a moment with a place that I did a bit of consultancy work for, whereby a chat was very inappropriate with me. And it upset me because I thought, oh, am I really here again? Like, is this, like, I've just done a book. Does he not know I wrote a book about
read
this?
The book.
Like,
yeah.
read the book,
yeah,
friend. But instead of, like, having a go at him or going and telling HR or really causing kind of a scene, I took the opportunity to say, do you know what? When you said this to me, this is how it made me feel. It made me really uncomfortable, and I am kind of a bit long in the tooth now, so I feel confident enough to have this conversation with you. But if you spoke to someone a bit more junior, that could really impact them and really damage their career going forward. So in future, I would prefer if you wouldn't say something about my appearance and we just keep it professional and talk about work. He was like, absolutely fine, never mentioned anything again, and we moved on from it. That's me doing a course correction, because I could have said that to him, but yeah, he could have carried on doing that behaviour.
But are you doing that through a position of empathy? So your response is understanding his thought process, or is it mainly driven from this is purely how I feel and I need to share that?
Both.
Okay.
I think I can't help it. I'm a very emotional person.
Yeah.
So I will have on my heart, on my sleeves, I will be upset and cross that that's happening. But equally, everything I feel leads back to this, is that I also want other people to be protected in the future. And actually maybe he didn't realise, and maybe he thought it was okay to say what he said. It's not okay. And I gave him the reasons to why it wasn't okay. And it's about educating almost. And again, that's what I mean by kind of course correct, because, you know, I can't sit here and say that I'm perfect, because I have done things when I was a lot younger, been inappropriate in the office myself, I've used bad language, all sorts of different things. But if someone had took me to one side, I would have been like you have to start holding up a mirror, isn't it? A coaching method there, like holding up the mirror, isn't it? And being like, oh, crikey, I need to course correct before this gets me into trouble. I need to make sure that I don't upset that person and apologise.
What I'm taking away from what you're saying there, it's about building awareness.
Yeah.
So it's about understanding how that's making others feel when we say comments like that. It's understanding the intentions behind what we're saying. But it's also something that's really hit there is it's the impact of it. Because what's the impact on how that person feels? But that goes much further than that, doesn't it? Because that might drive us into certain behaviours based on experiences. So, and where I'm going with this is that we talk about feedback, and it's about building that awareness around what's the impact of it. So there's points where you're talking out, I'm thinking you're really brave for speaking up like that, because I think there'd be lots of people out there that wouldn't feel that they could be brave enough to speak up in that way. What's your advice for them to have those types of conversations?
It's taken me a long time to be brave to do that, first of all. But if I didn't feel brave enough, my advice to somebody who maybe was feeling like, oh, I really want to say something, but I can't, go and speak to somebody else that can maybe go and have that conversation for you. So you might have a kind of mental health first aider or HR or another manager or another colleague, and actually go and explain, you know, how you feel. You're not looking to take it any further. You're not looking to do a disciplinary or anything like that. You're just wanting that person to have a conversation to explain that it's inappropriate, you can't do that, please don't do that anymore, and ask someone else to do that. And I think you'll be surprised at how many people would say yes. Sometimes maybe you're more comfortable You might want a man to speak to another man, or a woman to speak to a man, or a man to speak to a woman. You know, there's no wrong or right. You have to really assess the situation. And I bet you you might not be the first person that you ask, but there will be someone that goes, yeah, let me go and have that conversation for you.
Those conversations are hard. But not only do you want them to understand how you're feeling and the things that they said, the way they acted, how it has affected your feelings, but actually I'm putting you first because I'm telling you this. I'm now educating you. I'm giving you awareness. So going forward, you've got an option. You can carry on talking and acting this way, and my reaction in the future will be very different, and maybe I'm going to go to HR about it. Or actually you can learn from this experience and go, I want to change that course correction thing. And then that hopefully will then have a ripple effect that no one else will go through that as well from that person. But hopefully then he then helps educate others, that allyship and that ripple effect, that knowledge effect that can go then through an organisation and a business go, this isn't the way we want to go forward. And you talk a lot about in the book how businesses, things such as job descriptions and everything there's still biases built into it. So how do we challenge it at that higher level? Where do we start?
Oh, it just makes me so cross when I think one of the stories in the book is around a job advert that said he all the way through it. To this day, I still see that, and I just find that crazy. Businesses, it's not hard. This is the thing. The stuff I'm going to say is not rocket science. It really is. Instead of saying he, you could just put service delivery manager or they, or, you know, it really, you don't need to put any gender language in there. I also think there's things like anonymising CVs. You know, again, that's not a hard thing to do. Just take the name off. Like, it's as easy as that, isn't it? There has been, I think I sometimes sit and I talk about this and I feel like I'm super negative about everything, but I do think there has been some progress. And I have seen now with the rise of different recruitment agencies that are a lot more diverse in their thinking. You know, there's a brand called Flexer who do all of flexible working, and when I read through their job specs, because I did a bit of research for the book and just some other work that we're doing as well for Allyship, just to see what language and stuff they use, it's very kind of clear, concise. Part of the brand is using emojis, so they put emojis in there, and it's really, whether you're male, female or non-binary, you can look at that and be like, I can apply for that job. And just really taking out some of the, I don't know, we overcomplicate things, don't we? You know how some people put so much, anyone could be, you could read a job spec and think, Christ, I can't do that, that's crazy. I do think it's that. I think it's anonymising CVs. I also think it's calling it out. You know, if I see something inappropriate, like he or she even in a job spec, I'll do like a little report on LinkedIn. I do that. Or if I even do it when I see people on LinkedIn who are being inappropriate and saying different things, I do report them now as well. Just because the more people that do it, the more that LinkedIn can take control of that. I'm using LinkedIn as a sample because I feel like I'm constantly on LinkedIn. But yeah, that's what I think.
In terms of the book, it felt like, as I was reading through it, the stories became a little bit more shocking, a bit more impactful. Mm-hmm. Is that how it's structured, or is that me gaining a better understanding the more I read? Hopefully
a bit of both. I think as we went through kind of the stories and people sharing the stories and how we were putting it in there, we were also aware that we didn't want to put the shock right up front, because there's a lot, you know, we want to try, and it's storytelling at the end of the day. You want to kind of bring people on the journey to get to know the characters, because then you've got something, you feel for them, you start to get to know them. So when something happens to you and we think, oh, that can't have happened to Lyra, that's, you know, that's your character that you've met. And so it has been a bit of both of that, really. But it did go through David and I talked through it, and when we spoke to people that contributed, we're so fortunate to have people to have contributed their stories, to feel comfortable in doing so as well. When we spoke to them, it was different ages that we were at. that we figured out that that's when it was worse or when it was not so bad. And mine was definitely at the early on of my career, and now I've got older, it's not so bad. Whereas for David, talking about his early career, didn't really notice it, but now he's got older, he's noticing it. So it's really interesting, the timeline effect on that.
Is that quite typical, do you think, that in terms of those timelines? So is that a female, male thing? Is that the pattern we'd see, that typically for females it would be earlier on?
No, it just so happened that that's how we told our story. I also think it's the time, the generation that we were in at the time as well. So some of our stories go back kind of 10, 20 years, and some of them are more recent. But I've met people on the journey from the book who have said, I had a great career, nothing had ever happened to me, and then I started a new job, or we got this new leader, and he did X, Y, Z to me. And that they could have gone their whole 30 years of career, and then something happens. So I think it unfortunately, just because it's not happened to you now, it might happen to you today, tomorrow, next week, next year.
When we talk about allyship, we're not talking about a work thing here, are we? We're talking about a society aspect.
Yeah.
How do we start to challenge some of those unconscious biases? How do we challenge how we view certain words? How do we challenge when we picture a certain job or a certain role, what comes in our mind?
I always come back down to this. When we run our keynote around Allyship Actually, I always talk about the fact that we need to do a work on ourselves. And I'm obviously going to say that as well because of all the work I've done on myself. But you're constantly learning. I still have unconscious biases in my head, and now I'm doing all this work, learning more about allyship. I'm learning new words, I'm learning new terminology. Something that I just assumed was like a given actually isn't. And I think it's about being comfortable being uncomfortable in that. And we're so fortunate, and I know I say this a lot, we're so fortunate now with the world that we live in. We've got so much knowledge to our fingertips. Even this week, I joined, they're called Watch This Space. A wonderful woman called Kaya did a session around allyship. And as much as I have co-wrote a book about allyship, I know I still got loads to learn. So I wanted to go and support her because I'm a big advocate for her and Watch This Space. But I also wanted to go and I came away being like, whoa, I've got so much more to learn. Like I just assumed that was fine, that we were all fine. Something as well that I think, I'm sorry I'm bringing it back to businesses slightly, something that I think that we should do, and I had this when I worked at Virgin Media O2, and I'm definitely going to promote them on this, is they did a number of series where people would go and talk about their lived experience. And I went and sat on a session, and a person of colour talked about how she can't even get the train and what happens when she gets the train and people move and all of that. And I thought, wow, just because I didn't do that, that really made me think and made me change some of my behaviours when I'm out and about, and maybe I'll smile more at people of colour. Just in your head, you're like, I'm trying to do something positive to like, ugh. But you know, I think it's about businesses can do that to kind of help people, which I think if you're helping your people at work, maybe you can go home. Because I went home that day and I told my partner all about it. And then we had that conversation and I told my friends, and it's almost like a domino effect, isn't it? Kind of just what you learn here in work can then take out, and then you're making a bit of a movement.
And I think it's about moving that stuff from the unconscious to the conscious.
Yeah. Because
what we're not saying there is that you weren't smiling at other people on the train, but actually bringing that to the conscious of going, was I, wasn't I? We talk about metacognition, thinking about thinking, and going, do I need to adapt my behaviours? And that's something that really came across in the book, that David and other key allies, they wouldn't assume anything about sort of feelings or that. The first question was always, how has it affected you?
Yeah.
You know, it's allyship in the book isn't about someone talking over a lady that was talking and then a man jumps in and says that's unacceptable. It's actually asking that, how did that make you feel? Has that been sort of your experience of what good allyship is?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think it comes back down to that, what do you need from me? Doesn't it? It's always that. And I think that's something that I'm thinking more about now, is where, as I go on my own journey of learning more about allyship outside of my own community that I'm in and looking at other communities, I want to learn more around what do people need from me, what does a good ally look, what does success look like for them as an ally, and then I can go and do that. And again, it's not being publicising all the stuff that I'm doing, but I am going and educating myself, I am reading, I'm going to courses, but something that was talked about, and again, you do have to feel like super brave to be able to do this, actually speak out. And actually, if something isn't right, to say, hey, actually, what you're doing there is not okay, but check in with that person that that's what they want you to do. And it's really challenging because we're so comfortable, like that we can get so comfortable with like almost being like, oh, someone else might speak up, and don't do that. Speak up.
What do you need to do to find a good ally?
I think they find you. Because I don't think I went out looking for allies. I think I've just been very, very, very fortunate that since I have gone through my own journey of not being very well, I've met some amazing people who have just advocated for me and sponsored me. And, you know, I met Darren, and I would say Darren's an ally of mine. You know, you messaged me, you purchased our book, you're very supportive. Even when you and I had conversations, you were nothing but asking me questions around like, well, what's success look like for you? What are you going to go and do? And they're the conversations that we had. Again, it's around the people that you surround yourself with. Again, I'm an ally for women. Like just because I'm also an ally for men too. And that's because I care and I ask those questions. And I think that's, they find you.
And I think it links back then. It's because you care. It's because you ask questions that you've been able to find those right people, because actually, again, linking back to your actions and your behaviours. I think, you know, going back to our conversation, I asked you questions probably because you were asking me questions, and that general interest in one another just naturally happens. So always look back to what have I done, because normally it's down to the actions we've made.
I agree. And I was going to say, I'd offer a slightly different opinion where you mentioned there that a lot of it's down to fortune. I feel like we create that ourselves because of the positions that you put yourself in. So you're willing to be brave. We've learned to be brave, and you've built up some resilience because of the experiences that you've had. And I think there's a lot of people out there that be listening that are not at that point yet, but I think there's a lot of hopefully comfort they can take from that. Do you know what? I can do this. But again, and you mentioned in the book, the intention's good, but it's about the actions, right? So it's about the things that we do. It's just, as you said earlier on, you know, you go to an event, you don't have to be the vocal one, but just sit there and be in it and be present and put yourself in those situations. And when you do that, it's amazing the opportunities that come out of it. When you just go outside your comfort zone a little bit, and you just a little bit of vulnerability, and then the people you find are just unbelievable. You know, you look at today that, you know, I've known Darren that long, but very aligned in our thinking. I'd like to think that we're building, you know, a nice relationship through doing this and through sharing information. And I'd encourage anyone to do that. Go and speak to people and go and find out, you know, about other people. And we talk about give, get, don't we? So give energy, give it to others, and you'll build up those allies. Does that sound a fair reflection? Yeah,
to be honest, I think is a question that you've given me that I'm going to take away and think about, because you're right. Is it fortune, or is it because of what I've put out there? Or I genuinely sit here and just feel really lucky that I have had some amazing people in my life who are and continue to be in my life, who continue to support me. They're not out and shouting about being like, I help Lucy. They're doing it in the background, and they're not looking for like a cookie because they've helped me. They're doing it because they trust me, like me, want to support me, believe in me. And I feel so fortunate to sit here and say that I've got men help. And I think I just want to quickly add, it wasn't until I was working with David, so my opinion on men changed, because when I worked with men in a corporate environment, I've always felt like I've had to have my back up because of my experiences. But working with David, I don't have my back up. Like, I haven't turned up here today with my back up, but 5 years ago I might have done.
I think it goes back to the opportunities are always out there for all of these things.
Yeah.
But it's up to us to jump on them and see them.
Sounds like you found a good ally in David.
Oh, he's my favourite. I feel like I try not to be too like the David Barrow.
But it's good. And I think that what I'm trying to reflect on and learn is that, and I didn't do this in my early career, and I'm thinking about more the sort of business side of things, but I was almost ashamed to go and ask for help, go and speak to people, because I was put in a management position really early on, did a whole accidental manager thing. And I was in a position where I was going, I'm expected to know all this stuff. And then that it doesn't go well. I can tell you it doesn't go well. For me, if I'd have had more allies around me, but they have to believe in me, and I feel like I'd have to be able to build those relationships and those connections. And I think there'll be lots of people in similar positions in their careers where maybe they're just starting out and listening to this. And again, it comes back to that point of surround yourself with good people. And I'm guessing you might think some people are good and they turn out not to be. And then every so often, you find that real sort of golden person that's going to be there with you throughout your, not just your career, because this isn't just career stuff, is it? But life stuff.
Yeah. I think, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but something you've just said there around not asking for help, I think we need to change that narrative. If we don't, it doesn't matter whether you're at the start of your career, middle of your career, end of your career, wherever you are, if you don't know something, it's literally fine, like totally fine. We'll find someone that does know the answer. So it really upsets me, again, because I'm very emotionally driven, that when I work with people and they're like, oh, I've just never really said that, actually I just don't, and you've been sat there 6 months not knowing, like, why did you not say something? Oh, I just didn't feel, it's literally fine, we'll figure it out, but you could have said something sooner. What's wrong with our culture that hasn't allowed you to do that?
And I think it's Brené Brown that says vulnerability is something we demand from others but don't want to give. But actually, if we want other people to be vulnerable, it normally starts with us.
Yeah. Oh, I love Brené Brown.
Yeah, she's brilliant. What's triggered a thought there? And I was going to say this, but my mother-in-law changed that for me. I remember this is probably about maybe 15 years ago, and I was talking to her. She was telling me something to do with work, and she was saying, when she's in team meetings, she was quite senior in the NHS. She's expected to know a lot of stuff, and she just says, I don't know. Explain it to me. And I thought there was a bit of a penny drop moment, because I definitely didn't do that in my earlier career. And I think that probably came from when I was at school and I was shy. And I remember putting my hand up one time to speak out. And then what's happened from there is the teachers called me stupid or something, which was maybe a bit of a sign of the times, to the point where I got to, well, do you know what? I just won't bother. I'm not saying anything at all. And I think it's funny that you just speaking to my mother-in-law that's made that shift for me.
Thanks for sharing that. And there's something about that, isn't there, around our past behaviours and past experiences. And then Brené Brown here, like, you carry the shame. You think, oh, I need to know, you're meant to know, because if I don't know, because you all had that experience. And if you grew up being shy, you're not naturally going to go, well, actually, I don't know. Because your brain is telling you, because when last time I said I didn't know, I got told off. And
I think to become an ally, there's that little part of dealing with it, because one of the things that I guess I personally took away from the book and reflected on was I possibly wasn't always an ally, and actually dealing with some of some of the stuff that you'd said in the past or the culture of an organisation wasn't acceptable. But there's that little bit of forgiveness to go, yeah, that's fine, because that's in the past. I can't actually change the past, but I can educate myself to move forward. I can support others in the world that we're in now, and dealing with that, we all have got things that we've done in the past that we probably aren't that proud of, but actually what am I going to do going forward, because that's the bit that I can change.
Yeah, 100%. I always say this too when we run our keynotes, is that we're really not perfect. Like, and it's literally, again, it's literally okay to like make mistakes, depending on what your mistake is. Like, as you know, some of the stories in the book are not great, but you know, if you haven't maybe said something, or maybe you may have said something inappropriate, it's about going, oh, maybe reflecting upon that. What would I do differently now? And make sure you take that forwards.
I think this big learning for me from the book, very similar, that it's about, okay, so I've done that in the past when I thought I was being an ally. Maybe I wasn't, and maybe I wasn't doing it to the level that I could have done. I'll go back to my early management career when I was told that you're never friends with people, you just manage them. So that, you know what I mean? There's that kind of old school mentality of don't build relationships because you're there to basically dictate. So it was then moving away from that, and that took a bit of time to get in that position. And then you go a little bit too far the other way, and then you become a bit too friendly with people, and it's trying to get the right balance. But for me, that allyship and I think the best managers I've ever had are the ones that I just felt like they had my back. Whatever happened, mistakes, like the good stuff, the bad stuff, they always had my back.
Do you think there's a shift and change in that leadership style now? Because what you're saying there around, I remember being like, you can't be friends with your team, you can't do this, you can't do that. You kind of were scared to do anything. Like, do you think that's shifting and changing now with the work that you both do?
I do, because for us to deliver effective, impactful training, to share the messages that we believe in, we've got to have that relationship to be aligned and to be in sync with it, so that our messaging is very clear when we're going out and we're team teaching, or when we're not together. And I'm talking about the rest of the team as well. When we're not together, we're still sharing the same message, which is our why. It's the stuff that we believe in, which is the human element first. It's about building awareness, about taking personal responsibility. And if we were not allies, I think it really limits the impact that you can have. And more importantly, and you said this early on, it's about what do people take away from it, but what do they do with it? Anyone can sit on a course for a day, 2 days, 5 days. It's the actions after that. What are you doing with your new knowledge? And it's the same, out of the book that I've read, I can read it and then just forget about it all. But I'm sure that's not your intention behind it. You want it to influence behavioural change. So I think the relationships around that, because, and I'm very privileged, I've got to read your book and now I get to talk to you about it. And that can then influence my behaviours over the next weeks, months, years, and hopefully for a positive, and I'm sure it will.
I think things change as people realise they can be themselves at work, and the best results the business can get is when they allow everyone to be themselves. So I don't think it's about people needing to be generally friends per se with their people that work with them, but they need to understand that person. They can't manage everyone in their team the same to achieve the best results. So I hope when people leave our programs, they go, what leader do I want to be? And then how can I create the space that every single person that works with me for anything can be the person they want to be, and I can help them on that journey to finding their natural potential and their natural best.
So powerful, isn't it? It's all the words, like what I think as a leader might be completely different to what you think, what confidence means, what allyship means, what imposter syndrome means. It all means different things to us. How powerful is that people can walk away from your programs to be like, who do I want to be as a leader?
It is. You said it's never about us. That's the shift, isn't it? It's not about us telling. It's not about us dictating. It's not about me saying, Lucy, I've read your book and you should be this type of author. It's just a million miles away from that. It's not about me saying to Darren, you should be this type of trainer, this type of expert on leadership. It's not about that. It's like, what can we contribute? What can we all put in the pot together? Lucy, what are your top 3 leadership sound bites? So what can our L&D, HR professionals, what can our leaders take away from this?
I think the first and foremost, which won't surprise anyone, is going to be about communication. I think really have a look at your communication structure. do you even have the right change professionals in place? The amount of places I've seen and worked when I was permanent and as a contractor now, change happens and they don't communicate it very well, and people are in panic. People go through that emotion. So I really think it's so important to, even if you're not going to have a change person, get some really good comms in place and like make sure, isn't it something like 7 times? That's the marketing technique, isn't it? You need to say something like 7. You have to go and do that research, think outside your box and do that. So communication. I also think that you need to do some training with your teams. I think it's all well and good doing the day-to-day BAU stuff, but what about the power skills? Darren and I were talking about that just before we started recording, around those power skills, you know, to make your team successful, for them to be them full selves, allow them to do that. Give them coaching, put them on group coaching programs, invite external people like yourselves to come and train their teams, or even me, to talk about different subjects, whether it's resilience or whether it's confidence or whether it's change, because then you're going to set the team up for success. So next time when something does go terribly wrong or even terribly well, you know, you're setting your teams up for success. And I think my final piece is just always be curious. Just always ask questions. Don't assume. I know that we are constantly told that we need to problem solve. Our whole career, even our education, is like solve problem, solve problem, solve. No. Ask questions. Be curious. Find the right solution. Don't just assume you know what's going on, and do the investigation.
Amazing. Thank you. Hopefully now we're allies as well.
We so are. I love this.
So we've got in the description, there'll be a discount code for your book. So yeah, I'm not just saying this because you're on the show. Guys, go and buy it. It's a really powerful book for both males and females. Thank you so much for coming on. You've been absolutely brilliant. And when you've written your second book,
yes,
come back and see us and we'll talk about that
I shall.
as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave your comments. The Sound Leadership podcast was produced by Media First. To learn more about the media crisis and communications training, visit mediafirst.co.uk. The editor and producer was Darren Wingham. The show was hosted, written and researched by me, Dan Boniface. A special thanks to all the team at Media First and the BCF Group for supporting the development of this podcast. To learn more about the management, leadership, training and coaching that the BCF Group offer, visit thebcfgroup.co.uk or get in touch by emailing hello@thebcfgroup.co.uk. Finally, a special thanks to our exceptional guest today, who you can contact via the BCF Group.